Good morning once again, and to make a start we're going to make a stop. Ultimately a lot of this braking system needs a bit of a refresh, and that is the plan for today. So we're going to look at the caliper, giving that a strip down and clean, replacing the cable or pipe, tube, hose, whatever you prefer to call it. And up at the top end at the master cylinder, we're giving that a bit of a redo, cleaning it out and filling with fresh fluid, because the other stuff that's currently in there is somewhat like treacle with glitter. First bit to get off is the banjo, and that one in this instance is a 12mm. Be careful obviously with brake fluid, that's not meant for human consumption.
The worst container for that.
Maybe, but
of all the containers in the world. Oh dear.
Attack! Let's get the cover off the master cylinder reservoir jobber and get the rest of that fluid drained out. We can have a little nosy at what delights are held within.
That made a strange noise, didn't it?
That would be air being introduced to the braking system.
Yeah.
Hello, air. Couple of bolts just holding the cable on to the fork, and they are 10mm. Crock. It's tight. Oh no!
Disaster strikes.
Unpleasantry within the master cylinder. That's one dab of tissue there.
You should have used some clean tissue and not used.
Oh. No, I mean, we're not obviously not concourse clean, but functional clean.
Definitely an improvement.
6mm Allen.
The best of all the Allens.
Wiggle, wiggle. Bing.
What's she looking like, boss man?
Well, apart from the typical road grime of a X number of years old bike that don't seem to have much maintenance, more investigation required.
Yeah, what are you doing? Tell us. Brr.
Well, I've got me vernier digital caliper checker jobber, and I'm gauging how thick these discs are.
What's the minimum?
Minimum is 2.5mm, and because they do look a bit thin and flimsy type, these discs, compared to everything else we own.
What's the figure?
But we're more or less 275 on there, so I mean, looks like to be able to get the pad out from this side, we have to press the this part of the caliper
All of the knowledge.
back, so that it gives us a bit of clearance to get the pad off from this side. That one's just jiggling about like a jolly fellow, so you can come out and have a lay down. I'll give that a bit of squeeze with my awesome might. There we are.
Pow!
Right in the kisser.
That worked.
Yeah. So that is, yeah, there's some grim contents in there. One gentle swab, and you, sir, are unwell. I'm helping out! With everything cleaned up, it's time to reverse the process. Not make it dirty, but piece it all back together. Yeah, some nice... Finished!
No, Gordon.
Ugh. Just like my days in the adult entertainment industry.
Hey.
It might allow for a bit of stretch. Now, sometimes it's useful to have a functionale.
Functionale.
Pressing it in past that internal seal. It's a nice tight fit. Shiny. Ooh. It's probably upside down. Another delightful caliper, fully rebuilt, so that's ready to go back on, but for that to operate we need some fluid to get to it, and so the cable needs to be replaced, and then we can refill with fresh fluid and get some pumping action on the go. Applies a bit of copper. They see me be rolling. Time to connect the rest of this pump action stop gun. Lovely vintage. So I was hoping to reuse the master cylinder as is, but after trying to bleed the brakes through there was just nothing really happening. So as I've got a rebuild kit for the master cylinder, might as well do that as well and see if that resolves the issue. If not, just burn it down and start again. As you've just seen, yet again more parts of the braking system looking a bit on the grim side. Obviously that's with the rubber gaiter removed from there, and there should not be all that brown mess. So again, I've got to try and come up with some sort of circlip plier contraption to get that out, and then I can disassemble the rest of it. Well, it was handy that I discovered those circlip pliers just at the shop. So with that circlip out the way, I can crack on. So it was, as expected, rather cruddy, and with the circlip removed it should have meant that the little washer there would come out of its own accord, but with a little bit of persuasion with a socket and a whacker, it loosened up all the gunk and allows that to come out. So not the greatest, but neither was the rest of it. We can make it better. Within the master cylinder is this shaft, as we'll say. There are two rubber components in there which create seals at different parts. Thankfully this one has some little notches or ridges in there that help identify as the one at the back, and then the other one is just plain in the middle. And without knowing any more, I think it's just a case of taking the spring off, remembering that the pointier bit tapers to the end there, but getting these rubbers off, I think it's just a case of stretching them over. The barrel, as I'm now going to call it, for the master cylinder is fully naked. Still a little bit of corrosion there, but it's far better than it was. I essentially just got a bit physical with some pliers just to pull the old rubber off. Because I've got fresh ones which are stewing away in a little fresh brake fluid, I'm just going to carefully squish them all back on. Rightio, rubbers on the go. We have lubricated the inside of the barrel with, again, some fresh brake fluid, and that spring is definitely a little tougher. We've got to then put the washer and circlip back in there to hold everything in nice and tight. Last part of that construction then was just fitting that last rubber seal there, more of a dust cap than anything, I think. Then we reattach to the bike, get the handle back on, and get some pump action going. As you can see, we've got the that seems to have improved things a hell of a lot, so I'm reasonably happy. It's not quite 100% as good as I'd like it, so there's a little trick that we're going to try, leaving it overnight with the lever held open and tilted as high as it can, and that should help push any of the remaining air out and up to the reservoir and hopefully out of the system. This little contraption here serves as a handy little handlebar, brake lever kind of retention system, and I'll apply that and show you what I mean. Here we are. So it's clipped onto the brake lever, wrapped around the handlebar, and then clipped back on itself. Now you can achieve the same thing with some string or elastic or anything you can find in your personal bondage kit. So get creative and see what you find. That is essentially job done on this one for today. We got a full-on front end brake rebuild, which should end up in a pretty solid brake feel and a bucket load of confidence the next time, well actually for the first time I ever get out to ride this thing, because as yet, other than the odd couple of meters within the back garden being a bit of a tit, I haven't had this out on the public roads yet, and I think until I get this fully sorted, it's probably for the best. But next up, I think we'll have a little nosy at the rear drum, a little inspection. That's probably going to be fine. Ooh. The next big job is probably going to be the forks. If the rest of the bike is anything to go by, I doubt very much that the fork oil has been done in as long as maybe I've been alive. And there's also a bit of an air gap on these one as well that again is probably not been adjusted ever, but there is more to be done, and the skills we have as a team is probably enough to see us through without losing a limb. So keep watching, just in case we do happen to lose fingers and such, because that would be entertaining if not a little bit horrific. But stay posted and we'll see you on the next one.